Alright, so I'm going to start working on these fenders now for the tractor. Got the left side fender here, and I got a few things I got to do to it before I can sandblast it. For one, we got this cup that somebody put here and put a bunch of pins in. So this will be removed because it's not original, and I don't even have a use for this. Secondly, if you look up here towards the top, you'll see a piece of angle iron. I have no idea why there's a piece of angle iron there. And we have a pin on it. I don't know why, but that will go. And of course, that has put holes into the fender that's going to have to be welded up. Now, this fender came off of an industrial tractor, or an LCG model. And the reason I know that is if you look right here, you will see yellow paint. Well, the yellows was on the industrials and the LCG models. And of course, this is the correct fender with the bracket for a tricycle, so more so points towards, you know, those two models of tractors. And more than likely it was an industrial, because these two holes right here are for the flashing amber light. That will not be on this tractor. Those will get filled. These are for the factory tail light. These will stay. The two that are in here, well, technically there's three, are probably for a grease gun mount or some other kind of mount. This tractor didn't come factory with that, so these three here will also be welded up. And then the last thing I'm going to do, I have a beat up old fender. Oh, what the heck is that? Okay, well, I probably should have filmed that, because that was actually pretty cool. I don't know my military helicopters, but that kind of looked like a Black Hawk. I have no idea why it just flew over, but that was pretty cool. Anyway, I have this old fender here, and it's roached all to pieces. However, the stamped Ford logo is still good. Fender on my tractor should have that. So I'm going to cut this out and we'll patch it into that fender there. And like I say, this fender is pretty rough, so some people may get mad at me for that, but you know, I'm making the best of it. Because this one has a big rust crack here in the middle. Got a hole here, a big hole there, big hole there, big hole there. We have a tail light here at the rear, have a work light. These two holes at the very rear. There's another hole there, and the rear of the fender is literally caved in. So it's less work for me to move that to that fender than it is to try to fix this one. Now obviously, with this being the row crop bracket, I will save the bracket if I ever decide to scrap that fender completely. Okay, so like all my other videos I've done with welding, I won't show it because I don't want to damage my camera. And as you can see, I do have a TIG welder in the background. That's what I'm going to be using. to weld all this stuff up. Yes, it's harder to weld holes with a TIG, but it is possible. It just makes the final product easier to work with. So, one thing for welding up these holes, if you take a piece of copper, stick behind them, you can't weld to copper, it'll sit there and it'll hold your weld, and it makes it a whole lot easier. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this stuff here pulled off, and I'm gonna weld up these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 holes on here. And when I get that done, I'll show you the result. And then I'll start working on cutting the Ford out and piecing it in. And I will show that process of fitting it, just not the welding process. Alright, so I got those 2 holes there all welded up and smoothed out. These 2 actually did really well. These will require minimal filler to smooth out. These 2 here, I decided not to mess with them because I think whenever I patch that Ford logo in here, I can actually eliminate them. It's just less work, so I won't have to double do stuff. So I got these 3 done as well. This one here has a slight low spot right there, but I'm not going to grind it because it'll just eat away my material. These 2 here did really well. So all this will get some filler just to smooth it out. Then we'll hit it with some surfacer, and you'll never know they were there. Alright, so now I'm going to go grab the other fender. I'm going to cut out that Ford script. Then we'll get it patched into this one. Here's a little better look at this fender that I'm sacrificing. It's pretty roached out. It does have the original work light on it, which is pretty cool, but that's kind of about it. Which unfortunately, the lens is broken, but I think I can purchase that lens. So, I don't know if I'll put that on the tractor, but I definitely want to keep it and restore it and just hang on to it. But you can see the big crinkled there below it, that light. So that'd be very difficult to beat back out for a mechanic, because I'm not really a body guy. But to me, it's just not worth the hassle. And you can see those 2 big holes there on either side of the Ford logo. So like I say, it's a roached out fender. It could technically be saved if you wanted to put the time and effort into it. But considering that fender over there is in a whole lot better condition, it's just easier to do it this way. Alright, so now I'm going to cut that Ford logo out. Okay, and there's my patch, and I left it really wide for the body work. Of course, down here on the bottom you kind of can't unless you roll off down into there. And technically I probably could have come on down in here and used this to help line it up, but this will actually set on the fender and lay pretty flat, and I can line it up that way. But now I'm going to take and round off these corners and clean everything up, and then I'll get it on the new one, lined up, mark it, and then cut the new one. Alright, so there's the patch cleaned up, corners rounded. I just got to get it to set on here. It needs to set. Get it traced and get this fender cut off. That seems to set right there pretty well. However, I'm going to measure it off of my other fender to make sure this is setting where I want it. Because that patch is crooked as crap on there. Alright, so I got that thing set there, and I'm going to scribe around it. Now, scribing around it will make my exact location that I need to cut out this fender to where that'll butt up really tight to it. Okay, and you can kind of see my scribe mark. And of course, as you hear, the neighbor, of course, always has to work on their yards whenever I'm trying to film. What I'll do now is I'll cut this inside of my scribe, and then I'll come back with my belt sander and just refine it and just keep tweaking everything until that patch will set flush along this fender. And then once I get that, I will dress the side of this fender, and then we'll get it welded into place. Alright, so I believe I got it fitting like I want to. Right here where I welded, it's a little low. And I can kind of feel it diving right here. So I'll try to knock this back up before I weld it. But everywhere else it's pretty smooth. So now I want to clean up the paint off of the fender itself. Then I'll get this tacked into place. tack that in. So I'll tack it in, show you what that looks like, and then I'll fully weld it in, show you that, and then we'll finish it out. Okay, so there's everything tack welded. Some of them's fusion tack, some are ones I've had to add some filler to, but everything is lined up nice. I did have to tweak right in here, like I was saying when I was fitting it. I had to bring this section up. I think I had to lift up a little bit here and here, as well as right in here. But everything's nice and flush, so now it's time to completely weld it solid. Alright, so there's the panel fully welded in. I'm going to let that cool off for a little bit, and then I'll come back and planish it out a little bit, grind it down, planish it again, make sure everything's good and smooth, and we'll finish it out completely. Okay, there we go, there it is, ground down. We finished out with 80 grit. It really dove on me over here for some reason, I don't know why, but it's not too bad. Like I say, a skim coat of filler will take care of all that. So now I got to get both of the fenders sandblasted, do the mud work, get it in primer and surfacer, and get them painted. Okay, so I got it sandblasted, and as you can see, I already started a little bit of mud work. There's kind of the finished metal work done. Since I haven't showed any of it, here's the other one. That hole there in the middle I think was a spot weld, but it looked like it was all the way through, so I just filled it in. And once I get this mud work sanded out, I'll get everything in epoxy primer, followed by surfacer. Then I'll sand down the surfacer. And then once I'm happy with that, I'll get them painted gray. Alright, so here's the mud work finished. I got everything finished down with 320 grit on a DA. It's a little rough in here. Hopefully the surfacer will smooth that out, because I just can't get it the way I want with filler. But I am happy with the tops on both fenders. And of course I got everything in here just filled in. It's not really blocked in here because these things aren't really flat from the factory anyway. But this was blocked on both fenders. And as you can see, it was also put some in here just to kind of smooth the welds. I'm not overly worried about this area because you have to really look to see this, but it is smoothed out enough to where you won't really notice it. But now I'm going to hit them with some wax and grease remover first, followed by epoxy primer. Alright, so I got both fenders in epoxy, and this kind of gray color you're seeing now is the surfacer. And I'll let that sit there dry basically, and then I'll come back and spray it with a guide coat, which is basically like a black ink. It's kind of like paint, but it's more ink because it dries instantly. And then I'll sand that down until I don't see any of that black, and at that point, you know, I got a smooth finish, and then it'll be ready to be painted gray. Okay, so as you can see, I have this fender now in some surfacer. And like I say, this is basically a sandable primer that's going to fill in any imperfections. And I'm going to spray it down with some guide coat. And this is that black ink type stuff I was talking about. So you just lightly spray it on it. And then you just take some sandpaper, and I'm going to start off with some 180 grit. When you sand this stuff, I would suggest you use a block. I kind of like these soft blocks. I actually got this one from my local jobber. I've had it for years, so it's pretty wore. Now, that block will get in most places, but I've been using just one folded over and a flat palm. I know people are going to say that's not right. However, this is actually the second coat of surfacer on here. The first coat that I did over my mud work, I did block. So this is just basically sanding off the second one to eliminate any imperfections, and then this will be ready for the gray paint. Now, I'm not going to bore you with sanding this because I've already sanded the other fender and I probably got 3 hours in it. So I'll just show you the finished product whenever I get everything sanded and right before I get it painted. Alright, so there's the fender all sanded out. And I don't know if the camera will see it, but you can see like some guide coat here, here, and here. Those are the spot welds. And the reason that guide coat is still there is because that's lower than this metal. And since that's, you know, original, I didn't want to fill those in. But that's how your guide coat works. You basically sand it down until you don't see it. And anywhere you have guide coat still is a low spot. It's kind of a little bit here and a little bit around the Ford. That's not really a low, it's just where I couldn't sand really well. But like I say, I started with the 180 and that knocked the guide coat off. Well, then I came back with a 320 grit and then a 400 grit, and then just finished it off with a red Scotch-Brite pad. So this is now ready to be painted the Ford medium gray color. And once that's all done and set up, I will come back and paint the Ford logo blue on this tractor.